Hello, and welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today, we're going to do a watercolor painting, but we're going to do something a little different. I took a quarter sheet of Stonehenge Aqua, 11 by 15, and I cut it into forts. So this is approximately 5.5 by 7.5. Reason I did this is whenever I paint in the portrait orientation, if I have 11 by 15, I have to start adjusting the tripod and squeezing everything onto the table. And then from there, I thought, okay, let's cut it down to this. But I don't have any boards cut to the size where I can easily clip it. So I figured, let's see how we can do with just adjusting tape and just using a big brush on such a small piece of paper. So a few experiments gonna happen here and just have some fun. Feel free to paint along. And in this one, we'll do a tonalist approach to a tree portrait, and we'll see what we have to do to the paper to adjust it. So this is burnt umber. I'm using the medium hake brush, and as I've said before, this hake brush has many years on it, so it is quite worn in. Someone recently commented that they had bought, I think, the whole collection of the Ranson hake brushes, and some were stiff and some were soft. And I think that's just kind of, unfortunately, the way it is with any type of brush, where you're going to get it and it's going to need to break in. I don't know, let me know down below if there's any fresh out the pack brushes that work for you. I'm curious. I think I want to build up the really big tree here. Percy Poo is in the art room with me. She's walking around doing her Percy Poo thing. Now she's trying to dig her claws into my thigh. All right. Let's see. The bow of the paper really isn't too much of a distraction here, but I will get some wood cut down to the correct size. So I'm just pushing pigment around, creating our scene. Let's see. Let's get some raw umber. I have like this 2-color combination, using the raw umber for darker darks. So many cat noises. I was in Walmart the other day. I was looking for some tape because I have a window blacked out in the bathroom for kind of like darkroom photography stuff. And I saw this one tape that somebody had mentioned in the comments. I didn't pick it up, but I'm going to go to Walmart tomorrow, so I think I might get it just to try it. Frog tape. They were saying that it was really good for taping watercolor down. I'm definitely just setting my ways with the paper clip, but it'd be worth just exploring and seeing if it's an option and showing you all on video so you guys don't have to go out and spend y'all's money. Just using the card to scrape out. picking in some textures. It does seem like it's starting to dry quickly. And I have stated recently that we do have some colder weather with the heater running. The heater just kicked on, so that might be playing a part. Also on YouTube, there is an option to set up a membership. So I'm in the process of working on that, and what that means is I'll have some exclusive content for people that sign up there or here on YouTube, and that's just got to be approved and whatnot, and it's a cheap subscription fee. But that doesn't mean there's going to be less free videos or anything like that. It just means I'll be filming more videos and just putting up a little extra content for those that want to donate to the channel as a thank you. I've been having a lot of fun with the painting videos, with exploring the different palettes, but I've also realized I could take my videos and not just have the video up. I could turn the video into a time lapse. So I think some people enjoy time lapse, some people enjoy the narrated versions and to paint along. So I'm trying to offer all those different things for people to utilize and have fun with. I would also like to, and I've been talking to some different people about it, maybe put together a little print-on-demand book, maybe of just like selected works up until now, maybe for people to use as references to paint along with if you wanted to follow along and have either a digital copy or a physical hard copy, or if you wanted something as a collection. And it's not so much looking at it from the monetary standpoint. I want to kind of just like, I feel like that's the next step with painting, is putting things out there like that. I was talking to some people and they were saying some are book learners, some are visual video learners, and just think it'd be fun. One thing with painting on this size, I said it was 5.5 by 7.5, is that we are going to have a little bit of cropping if we were to put a mat over this. And I do have a mat of that size right here. We'll see how it's going to bring everything in. If I'm sketching, I'll usually put the mat over the paper and mark off the inner corners and then sketch within that. Mainly so I could control the composition size and also not waste time drawing outside underneath where the mat would be. But with watercolor, it's just a matter of the cropping. A lot of water on the brush, so I'm not getting a huge amount of texture, but I'm also not suffering from cauliflowering. I want to mix a dark into this. Let's grab some Paynes gray. I had mentioned the time lapses because I had put up a time lapse and somebody asked if I was going to do a full version of that. I had put the full version up on Patreon, but I wanted to paint another tree painting that I would put up onto YouTube just so people could have access to that. I'm exploring this edge here, this seam between the dark and the brown. I feel like something visually interesting can take place here. Let's see what we can do. We really start globbing pigment in wet and wet. Maybe light red oxide would be interesting in this spot as well. Bring some of these tree elements coming from a little bit closer. Turn this area here, the brown, into leaves sitting in front of the darker tree trunk back here. Kind of just pushing paint around, having fun. Also, I try to read all y'all's comments and respond. Talking earlier about more compositional exploration and areas of interest. I know there's a whole bunch of little tricks, and I'll need to read some books to get some ideas, but here I'm trying to use the dark, the light area. We have a tunnel shape here. We have our texture. I'm using a lot of vertical aspects as opposed to horizontal. So there's a lot of things that are taking place that either I don't talk about or don't know enough to talk about, but I'm going to try to educate myself in those areas so I can then pass that along to y'all. Let's scrape some out here. Let's see what happens. Using the rounded edge to try to push out some more whites. Let's grab some Paynes gray for closer darks. I grab some light red oxide on this. Let's see how our mat would look. So it would crop everything in. Raw umber. I like this tree that's softening and going back, then putting a closer tree in. My shapes are unfortunately very repetitive, so what I'm going to try to do is just put an excessive amount there to try to push that away. Paynes gray. Fortunately, I don't have a Blick or Jerry's Artarama order planned, but there are some blacks and pigments that were suggested that I'd love to try eventually. someone was talking about using Daniel Smith indigo. So if you have that, I'm curious what how you're liking that. Okay, so we kind of have our eye come in here. We have the tunnel. We have the area of interest. And we have that shape. That blocks the eye a little bit coming in, unfortunately. All right, let's pause. Let's do a dry off and see how this looks. All right, so we had a softening take place, but this palette, I am absolutely loving the rich chocolate browns. So far it's been burnt umber, raw umber, Paynes gray, and light red oxide. I think that's all I've used so far. So we had the light softening taking place whenever it lightened up. So I'm going to go in with the #1 rigger, start playing around on top. And we'll work on a closer element. So the goal is to have this dry brush layer that will sit closer to us visually, either through darker tonal values or the more striking texture. Oh, way too much. Me and Joe Menza were talking the other day after my other tree painting, and he had played around with the image and adjusted the contrast on it and showed me some of the contrast potential that could take place in the darkening. And we were talking about potentially using gouache on top. But I do have a hard time with watercolor painting and then coming back another day over it. Watercolor for me is, the way I approach it is just, you know, kind of one and done. And that's the approach I used to have with oils, where I'd work on it that day. But I use the oil medium as an extended painting process and watercolor as the fast and loose process. You get a lot of texture out of this. Let's see. I have this little pan right here. What we're going to wind up doing is put a little bit of gouache in this, and we could splatter over it. We'll see how that affects it. Did that on the last tree painting, and it's always fun to do. Ian Campbell, who he doesn't film his process, he posts on the Ron Ranson Disciples, and he is a Facebook friend. He makes excellent use of splattering and white gouache. I think he was saying he started painting in 2003, and he is just absolutely fantastic. It's so interesting being in different Facebook groups, or just even one Facebook group for painting. And over time, you'll have the regulars who will share their work quite often, and you'll start recognizing people's styles. And you say, oh, that's an Ian Campbell, that's a Colin Woodward, that's a Joe Menza, that's a Matthew Clemens, that's a Lois Davidson. You start seeing all that. And then it's funny, I'm not good with name pronunciation, so I'll draw a connection, but I won't be able to pronounce the name. All right, let's pause this. We'll do our last dry off. Just speaking a small diatribe. think it was Jose. I'm not sure who it was. They had posted a painting where they used the hake for the whole thing. And either there was a challenge to themselves or they couldn't find their small brush. But that just goes to show that you can really use any type of brush on any type of paper. Here was the medium-sized brush, which is probably about 1 inch wide. So I hope you enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, follow. You are more than welcome to paint along with this. Ooh, let's look and see where would look best. Probably about here would look best with the mat, if it was. So please like, subscribe, follow. I hope you enjoyed. And if you ever follow along, please tag me in the work that you do. I'd love to see your renditions. And whenever people do that, it's just so cool. And I screenshot and send it to my mom. So I appreciate when you all do that. Have a great day.